Telescopes have found a rare brown dwarf in our solar system. These elusive objects have baffled scientists for quite some time. The discovery could provide new information about how they came into existence. RT's Brigida Santos is live tonight in our LA studio. Brigida, for our audience tonight, let's get clarification. What is a brown dwarf?
Ed, a brown dwarf is believed to be the missing link between stars and planets. Now, they have a mass up to 80 times that of Jupiter. This particular dwarf is about 30 to 65 times the mass of Jupiter. Now, less than 1% of stars that are the size of our sun have a brown dwarf orbiting within a distance 3 times that of the distance between our sun and Earth. This dwarf is more special because they believe that it's actually closer than that in an area that they typically refer to as the brown dwarf desert. This means that that desert may not be as dry as they had initially thought that it was. And the reason why it's important for scientists to observe these objects is because they are further away from the sun, which makes them much easier to do research on. Now, the lead author of this study says, quote, "We want to understand how brown dwarfs form around stars and why there is a gap in where they are found relative to their host stars." Back to you, Ed.
Well, assignments, I understand, have been updated for astronauts headed into the International Space Station next year. What's the latest on that?
So crew members have been reduced. Russia has decided to send fewer of its cosmonauts into the ISS. Typically, Roscosmos, the Russian space station, has sent 3 astronauts. It's now sending 2, which does mean that all of the missions that are planned are going to be short 1 member. Russia has offered to sell the vacant seat to NASA, but it's unclear whether NASA will take up that offer. And this does not mean that Russia is getting out of the space game or slowing down even. In fact, they are planning to launch a new segment of the ISS next year or in 2018, depending on when it's actually finished. And at that time, they're going to be sending additional crew members up to the ISS. But right now, it's really about cutting costs for them and saving money. Now, the first ISS mission of 2017 is scheduled to take place in March. And during that time, they are going to send Russian cosmonaut Fyodor Yurchikhin, who is going to act as the commander, along with 1 member of NASA, astronaut Jack Fisher. And from there, about 4 other ISS missions will take place between May and November of next year, Ed.
All right, Brigida Santos reporting tonight from Los Angeles. Thanks, Brigida.
Now, what I'm going to show you here is the approximate position of the Nibiru and its 7 planets coming in. Because this is apparently a genuine photograph, in the center there with this red with the black dot and the what appears to be a planet up to the left. It's coming in, this photograph, what I'm going to show you on Stellarium, is set up for Hobart, Tasmania, south of Australia. And you'll see Jupiter. Now, if you just notice around here, the stars aren't that numerous, and I think what's happening is that the light coming from the distant stars are being absorbed into the rear of the magnetic field because the light is being bent. I mean, light is bending in space all the time. In the old cathode ray tubes, which is the old television sets, that's how a television set works. You bend the light, electrons coming at the screen. So I'll now go over to Stellarium and show you the same scene, basically. So there's Jupiter there. We'll pull that over. So in this area here is where I was showing you. Now I'm going to show you what happens when we get out and away from that spot that I've determined where this is going to be. And you'll see how the light comes on. And then as we go back towards where I think that the Nibiru object is the lights go out, so I'll go back again, the lights go on. So the light is being bent and absorbed by the Nibiru object. So we'll go up now towards Taurus, which is up here, and you'll see the light comes on again. There's Taurus there. The light's going off and on. So possibly this hasn't been noticed by the authorities. I'll just go up again. Now she comes on again. Come back down. Jupiter just goes off screen. Now we'll go left and right. Give it some perspective. Light comes on, off. The light comes on again. So it would appear to be around this area here. Not to say that it is, but it appears to be that's where the effect is occurring. Now, it could be behind Jupiter itself. It could be over this area here, but somewhere in this general vicinity. So that's just a little update on what I've been able to determine could be a possible indication where it is coming in from. And of course, Castor and Pollux down here is the twins, first and second coming. So I'll talk to you later.
Planet X special bulletin: a dwarf star and 7 planets are coming in. For the past few hours I've been listening to Patty Brassard, spelled Brass, B-R-A-S-S-A-R-D, a former NASA employee who built the robots which are being used on Fukushima at this moment. She tells of an incoming solar system with 7 planets and says that by August 11th, 2013, the existence of Planet X will be undeniable. She says when this object lines up with our sun on August 17th, 2013, another major earthquake will occur. This time, though, the object will be only 0.32 AU away from the Earth. The unit AU stands for astronomical unit. That's the distance from the Earth to the sun, previously measured at 93 million miles. But Patty says that the Earth is being pulled in toward the sun, and this elongates the orbit and will make summers very, very hot and winters the coldest you've ever experienced. More frighteningly, she said that our electric grid will go down, and when it does, all nuclear power plants will go down too. It is electricity which keeps the reactors cool, and when the electric grid goes, the power plant has only hours on auxiliary power before that too fails. And from what I understand, that means total meltdown. And she says you should locate these nuclear power plants. She said there are over 100 in the United States alone. And make sure that you're not near one. I saw a map. They're all over the East Coast. In fact, I look out the window and I can see one. She said the kill zone in Fukushima was 150 miles. Everybody within 150 miles dies when the nuclear power plants melt down. When I looked out the window and saw one at Palo Verde, I put my head between my legs and kissed my ass goodbye. Patty's in Massachusetts and her basement is at sea level, so she does not intend to survive the passing of Planet X. She said Russian and Israeli troops are here to round up the people who protest and put them into the FEMA camps, that's what they were built for. She also said that those buildings have gas pipes 2 feet thick in diameter and that they don't want the people on the surface to survive. She talks about Auschwitz, and I gather that they're going to gas the people in there. Don't go to a FEMA camp under any circumstances. You will never come out alive, according to Patty. She said that the coffins can accommodate 3 bodies, and if you wind up in a FEMA camp, you might as well be in Auschwitz under Hitler, because they didn't rig gas to these quarters to make sure that you're nice and comfortable. The government never gave a rat's ass about you or your comfort. It's always been about them. They want you dead, and now the truth is coming out from yet another whistleblower. She said all those near the coast are finished. She said we will see the seas rise 200 feet just from the melting of the South Pole, and that the melting is occurring not from the top down, as you might expect from global warming, but from the bottom up. In addition to 200 feet rise in sea levels from the melting of the South Pole, she said that as this object gets closer, it will stop the rotation of the Earth. And as it slows down and the seas keep moving, she says because of the moon, that the moon controls the waters, and that water will continue to move at 1,000 miles per hour, and that anyone living near the coast is finished. Now this follows 3 days of darkness, which she says is caused by an eclipse. This object is between the sun and us. She says that Mars is getting hammered right now with all the debris from the tail, and she recommends that if you want to survive, that you find the highest place on Earth and get underground. Dig a hole. She says bring a camper and bury it under 3 feet of earth. She says rent a backhoe or something to cover it up. I think this is all insanity. What are you going to do? Breathe radioactive air and survive? You're going to go fishing? Catch fish in order to eat? She says the worst of this will be from the end of August until November. That's 4 months. How are you going to survive? September, October, November, 3 months. Each person needs half a gallon of water every day. Fresh water, not radioactive water. I think most of us had better put our heads between our legs and kiss our ass goodbye. All those things I spoke about in my Planet X videos, I have about 40 of them. One of them has over 1 million views. And all those things I talked about turn out to be true. And nobody is sadder than me about that. I wanted it to be wrong. I wanted the earthquakes and volcanoes and sinkholes to be some kind of hoax. But who has the ability to cause earthquakes and volcanoes and sinkholes just to have fun? It's not easy to fake a quake, Jake. This is not a mistake. California, Patty says, will drop into the ocean. It's somewhere between the 17th of August, 2013, and the 26th of August. She says there will be a magnitude 15 quake, centered in Seattle, Washington. So I picked up the phone and called all my friends and told them, and they laughed at me. Oh, that's crazy. Go back to sleep. Patty says her own family has scheduled a family reunion from the 10th of August to the 17th. So that tells you how serious her own family is about her words. I think it's very serious. You don't call in all the ambassadors from all the embassies and close the embassies on a whim. These people have tickets to the underground facilities, and you don't, because you are a dirtbag. That's what I've been saying all along. They treat you, the host of the parasites, like a dirtbag. You paid for all of those underground facilities over the past 50 years, and now you're not invited. And so they expect when the people learn the truth, they're going to be angry. They're going to get their guns, and they're going to try to kill somebody. And you're going to end up killing one of our own who's just uninformed. He thinks he's serving his country. He thinks he's a hero, and you're going to kill him? It'd be better if you talk to him. Talk to all military, talk to all cops, and tell them what's going on, because in the next 10 to 20 days, there's going to be a great awakening by everyone who realizes we are finished. You can't jump in your car and run to get something at the grocery store if the UV A, B, and C are coming down on you. It's deadly. Microwaves will cook your car. She says that microwaves will heat up anything that's metal. It will be red hot from the sun. If California has a 15 magnitude earthquake, do you realize what that will do? And there is nobody to come in and rescue anybody. Remember when all those buildings and freeways fell on people in past earthquakes? Those were 6s and 7s. This is a 15. And every number you go up, it's 10 times more powerful. That means a 15 is 1 billion times more powerful than a 6. A 6.0 compared to a 15 is 9 numbers up. That's 10 to the 9th power. That's 1 billion times more powerful. Nobody can survive a 15. Nobody. Not 1 billion times more powerful than the ones that brought down the Nimitz freeway and crushed cars as flat as a pancake. All that metal and steel crushed to a pancake with people inside them. I lived in California for about 30 years. I know the San Andreas Fault. I know where it goes in Los Angeles. I know where it goes in San Francisco. But once you get into Oregon and Washington, I don't know much about the San Andreas Fault. I understand that it goes all the way to Alaska. Now, if these plates fracture and California sinks because of lack of support, the pulling away from that plate, the Pacific plate, the tsunami that will come into Los Angeles could be very high. But Patty says we're going to lose much of California. And she says that Tagish Lake, Alaska, will be the new South Pole, that the pole shift has already begun. Tagish Lake, Alaska, I looked it up. There's a Canadian province. Most of Tagish Lake is in that province. BC, might be British Columbia. But as soon as you go over into the U.S. side, Alaska, there's still part of the lake there, a very small part. But she says just north of there will be the new South Pole. Now that's not what Nancy Lieder said. Nancy Lieder had the North Pole off the coast of Brazil and the South Pole dead center in Saudi Arabia, I believe. Maybe it was reversed. Maybe the North Pole was Saudi Arabia and the South Pole was off the coast of Brazil. That's east of Brazil. Now Patty's telling us, with inside information, that Tagish Lake, Alaska will be the new South Pole. I believe that the pole shift is already underway because I've seen the map where the North Pole is moving. It's moving very quickly and it's accelerating. As I recall, the North Pole was headed toward Siberia. and that it would arrive in Siberia in January of 2014. But I'm recalling this from memory. I can't be sure. I didn't look it up. But I looked up Tagish Lake, Alaska. I spun the globe. I turned it upside down so that was the South Pole, and I spun the globe. And I found that Arizona will be in the southern hemisphere, and Australia will be in the northern hemisphere. Imagine that. Arizona will be the land down under. And it's too bad that I'll be dead in just 10 days or so, because I was looking forward to looking up into those southern skies at night and having the experience of seeing things completely different. Now, you may recall on my previous Planet X videos, I spoke about microwaves cooking everything when the Van Allen belt collapses, and very, very few people understood that. They tell me they've got a garden, they're going to go camping, they'll be all right. And I knew that they had no idea what a microwave was, or how it cooks you, or how the Van Allen belt protects us, and that's going to collapse because this star is enormous. I always ridiculed those who said that this star was 4 times the size of Jupiter. Patty says that just one of the 7 planets is 4 times the size of Jupiter. She said that the asteroid belt was a planet, and it got hit head-on by one of these things in the tail of Planet X, and it got smashed to pieces, and that Jupiter absorbed most of it, and the asteroid belt is just what's left over. Now imagine that you cannot go outside even to pee for 6 weeks because there will be deadly, she calls them UVA, UVB, and UVC, ultraviolet A, B, and C rays, which kill everything. I never heard of ultraviolet A, B, and C. I knew that ultraviolet rays kill everything, especially the things we depend on. That's why I say, if it kills the things we depend on for survival, how are you going to survive? She says that some people will survive. Maybe those microorganisms will be inside the caves. I don't know. I think life is going to be extremely difficult. I hope that the first to die are those in the underground facilities, the so-called elite and government, because they are the most evil. And all you religious people who think that Jesus is going to save you, well, you're going to find out. Now, this announcement that I'm making to you is the most grave announcement I have ever made about anything. And while Patty gives advice about how to survive, she says, dig a hole, cover it with at least 3 feet of dirt, put some sort of camper or something in there, rent a Caterpillar or something that costs $200 a day, and dig a big hole in your backyard, put your camper in there, and then cover it up with 3 feet of dirt. That's crazy. You won't have food. You won't have water. You won't be able to go outside. How are you going to flush the toilet? If you do survive, you're going to be a totally mind-controlled, chipped slave for the elite, if they survive. But she says that these underground facilities, which are now stocked with food that is uncontaminated by Fukushima radiation, because they've been stocking those underground facilities for decades. A truck driver called in, a woman, and said she delivered things to Denver Airport, the underground facility there, and they were labeled just general merchandise. So there's first-hand testimony that these underground facilities were stocked. But Patty says that these underground facilities are going to rupture and water is going to flood in and drown most of the people that are the so-called elite. Now, they left us up here to die like a bunch of dirt bags. I imagine that they have cameras everywhere to watch what's going on, and they're going to be down there in their cushy bunkers watching us die and suffer and squirm. And if a fracture occurs and water floods in, I would like to have a camera to watch them drown like rats. If that water is from the Pacific Ocean, maybe it will be full of radiation, and maybe it will contaminate all of their fresh food down there. Maybe the air that comes in will be full of radiation, because all over America, tests are showing that our air is just full of radiation. And maybe this is why the French psychic, could not see past 2012. Maybe that's why all those who did time travel said that there was a barrier after 2012. When pressed, the French psychic said, 2 possible reasons: we have a war with aliens, or I'm dead, and that's why I can't see beyond 2012. Well, you've got strontium in the air, which causes bone cancer, and plutonium, which affects all the organs and tissues. And thousands are already dying from the radiation from Fukushima. Remember that Fukushima is about 10 times worse than Chernobyl. Chernobyl was 180 tons of radioactive material, and Fukushima was 1,760 tons. So that's almost 10 times as much. Fukushima is 9 or 10 times as bad as Chernobyl. I've got some shrimp and salmon in the freezer, and I think I'm going to go cook it while the electricity is still on. I already ate all the butter pecan ice cream, and if you have any ice cream that you can't eat, call me. I'll be over there faster than you can say, those dirty bastards in government saved themselves and left us out here to die. How long does it take to say that? How do you like this? The U.S. military is guarding the DUMBs so that you can't get in. They will shoot to kill. They will kill Americans to prevent them from getting into the underground facilities. Well, I don't want to breathe the same air those people breathe. I might wind up like them. So no thanks. I'm not interested in going into a DUMB. These military have already been tested to see if they are loyal to the head Nazi, and they proved that they will follow orders. They will kill anyone they are told to kill. And they think they're heroes. Their reality is not the same as your reality. They live in an illusionary world. I would consider it mental illness because they don't know reality. Soon all the banks will be closed and you won't be able to get any money out. And I have been advocating that you get your money out of the bank anyway. And what I have seen on this video with Patty is that the money you hold will only be worth something for a little while longer. And soon nobody will be interested in your money. They're not going to trade real food for fake money. We have been expecting a currency collapse anyway. I just had no idea that it would turn out like this. If you have a house that's made of cement block and a roof that's not made of wood, that's valuable. And there isn't any amount of money that I would trade for such a house. Now the value system changes. If you've got a caterpillar, a bulldozer, a backhoe, this is extremely valuable. This is worth millions of dollars, even if you paid $6,000 for it, because this is the difference between life and death. Perhaps. I don't know what you call life after something like this. You come out of your nest and breathe radioactive material that will be in the air for thousands of years. You call that life? Look up Patty Brassard, Brassard, on YouTube. Watch the videos, the interviews. There's one with Veritas Radio out of Tucson, and that interviewer is very smart. The sound quality is pretty good. There's another one where they talk about the kill shot and they put the date August 5th, 2013. The sound quality is very poor. Very, very poor. It's difficult to hear the announcer. It's difficult to hear his guest. There was no attention whatsoever given to this video on quality, and if you're able to get anything out of it, that's great. There's a lot of blank space, so it means the audio was not edited. And because of these reasons, it's not a very good quality video. But it's the best you have at this time. You might wonder what is going to happen to Patty. Well, she said she's old, and she's already lived far longer than she expected to. She's falling apart because she carried an M16 across her chest, and the bullets were either depleted uranium or enriched uranium. Can you imagine the U.S. government having soldiers carry radioactive material so close to the chest? This is disgusting, disgusting. And this story should spread to all military so they know how the government really thinks of them. Listen to Patty's testimony. She was in Iraq. She was in communications. These lives meant nothing to the Nazis. Nothing. They were pawns, and the military should understand that. I didn't know that they were using enriched uranium. I knew they were using depleted uranium, but I thought it was only for shells. She said when they are trying to penetrate the ground, they use enriched uranium. These are war crimes. That's who your government is. They're war criminals. They're false flag inside job terrorists. And Patty says the last 4 major terrorist attacks were all inside jobs, and it was done in order to take the guns because they can't pay the Chinese in gold, and so they offered them coastal properties. The Chinese wanted coastal properties, but they said, you disarm the people first. That's what Patty said. That shows you she has a lot of inside information. Now remember, August to November, about 4 months, will be the roughest part of the passing of Planet X. She said if you want to save yourself, it's already too late. She produced some very believable images to support her claims, and she claims to be able to access computers at NASA and EPA and other government agencies. And she revealed that NASA is not a government agency, it's a private corporation. She said it's no more government than the Federal Reserve is. There's one more thing I would like to tell you. She said that 6 astronomers or scientists, these are top astronomers and scientists, had decided that they were going to talk and tell the people, and all 6 of them were killed recently. I haven't heard of it. I don't know who the scientists are, but I think that Patty might be murdered soon also. I would not be surprised. In fact, I am also looking for a bullet but I'm old and it doesn't matter if they kill me. I don't want to die of thirst. I don't want to die frying under a microwave sky or dying under UV light, ultraviolet light. This is not for me. I'm going to continue my effort to inform and let the chips fall where they may. You all have a right to know what's coming, and your Nazi government will not tell you anything because they want you dead. That's the way it's been for a long time now, and I've been saying it from my first video because I've been reading and putting the pieces of the gigantic puzzle together, and I know what evil looks like. Government is pure evil. And if you didn't know that before today, the next 10 days are going to be enlightening, trust me. And all that propaganda you've been sucking up on the TV will now be blown away when the electric grid goes off and you have no TV and no drinking water. You'll be defecating outside because the house stinks from a toilet that can't be flushed. There's no water. The government wants you dead, and you're better off dead. And all you religious people out there who hounded me relentlessly and dumped your scriptures on my channel, I hope Jesus saves you from the frying sun's rays. And I got some advice for you. Pray while you cook. That's as much as I can say at this time. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for listening.
NASA's Spitzer and Swift space telescopes have found a rare brown dwarf in our solar system. These elusive objects have baffled scientists for quite some time. The discovery could provide new information about how they came into existence. RT's Brigida Santos is live tonight in our LA studio. Brigida, for our audience tonight, let's get clarification. What is a brown dwarf?
Ed, a brown dwarf is believed to be the missing link between stars and planets. Now, they have a mass up to 80 times that of Jupiter. This particular dwarf is about 30 to 65 times the mass of Jupiter. Now, less than 1% of stars that are the size of our sun have a brown dwarf orbiting within a distance 3 times that of the distance between our sun and Earth. This dwarf is more special because they believe that it's actually closer than that in an area that they typically refer to as the brown dwarf desert. This means that that desert may not be as dry as they had initially thought that it was. And the reason why it's important for scientists to observe these objects is because they are further away from the sun, which makes them much easier to do research on. Now, the lead author of this study says, quote, "We want to understand how brown dwarfs form around stars and why there is a gap in where they are found relative to their host stars." Back to you, Ed.
Well, assignments, I understand, have been updated for astronauts headed into the International Space Station next year. What's the latest on that?
So crew members have been reduced. Russia has decided to send fewer of its cosmonauts into the ISS. Typically, Roscosmos, the Russian space station, has sent 3 astronauts. It's now sending 2, which does mean that all of the missions that are planned are going to be short 1 member. Russia has offered to sell the vacant seat to NASA, but it's unclear whether NASA will take up that offer. And this does not mean that Russia is getting out of the space game or slowing down even. In fact, they are planning to launch a new segment of the ISS next year or in 2018, depending on when it's actually finished. And at that time, they're going to be sending additional crew members up to the ISS. But right now, it's really about cutting costs for them and saving money. Now, the first ISS mission of 2017 is scheduled to take place in March. And during that time, they are going to send Russian cosmonaut Fyodor Yurchikhin, who is going to act as the commander, along with 1 member of NASA, astronaut Jack Fisher. And from there, about 4 other ISS missions will take place between May and November of next year, Ed.
All right, Brigida Santos reporting tonight from Los Angeles. Thanks, Brigida.
Now, what I'm going to show you here is the approximate position of the Nibiru and its 7 planets coming in. Because this is apparently a genuine photograph, in the center there with this red with the black dot and the what appears to be a planet up to the left. It's coming in, this photograph, what I'm going to show you on Stellarium, is set up for Hobart, Tasmania, south of Australia. And you'll see Jupiter. Now, if you just notice around here, the stars aren't that numerous, and I think what's happening is that the light coming from the distant stars are being absorbed into the rear of the magnetic field because the light is being bent. I mean, light is bending in space all the time. In the old Cathay Road tubes, ray tubes, which is the old television sets. That's how a television set works. You bend the light, electrons coming at the screen. So I'll now go over to Stellarium and show you the same